2.5 years into their mandate, Madam Speaker, on poverty reduction, the government has no plan. On jobs and economic growth, no plan. On housing, no plan. On education, no plan. On health, a patchwork of several plans mostly developed under the NDP. On hydro, no plan. On mental health and addictions, a plan that ignored suicide and methamphetamines, both of which are at crisis levels in this province. The climate and green plan may have been flawed. It may have been incoherent. It may have had no measurable goals and no real chance of success. But it was a plan, Madam Speaker. A plan that cost Manitobans $60,000 in return flights to Ottawa for its author alone. Does the Premier have any idea how much time and public money have been wasted promoting this charade?
The Honourable First Minister.
I'd say the biggest charade of all is Ottawa pretending that they know more about how to help build an environmental strategy for the provinces than the provinces themselves do. I'd say the second biggest charade is that Ottawa thinks that it's going to help the economy of this country blossom by taking billions of dollars out of the hands of working families, seniors living on fixed income, struggling people, and taking it to Ottawa and then getting credit for sending it back somehow. I don't see this as helping our economy. I don't see this as helping our environment either. So, Madam Speaker, when the man speaks about charades, he's speaking about what's going on in Ottawa right now.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, the Premier says that by abandoning the Pallister government carbon tax, he will not be able to pay for his planned income tax cuts. I will note that in the first 2 years of a federal carbon tax, Manitobans will actually be paying 20 to 60% less than they would have under the plan the government has abandoned. Now, it's also worth pointing out, Madam Speaker, that the promised income tax cuts were regressive, trickle-down cuts that only save people living in poverty a few dollars while handing hundreds of dollars to people at the top of the income scale. The government side were effectively voting themselves a tax cut. Under the NDP, as we know, low and middle income Manitobans paid the highest taxes in Canada because the tax cuts they delivered to were at the top. The province could still proceed with a better tax relief for people at the bottom of the income scale without massive handouts to people who don't need it if they used earned income tax credits. My question for the Premier is, if the federal carbon tax will bring in more revenue than the Pallister government carbon tax, why not use it for bigger tax cuts or relief?
The Honourable First Minister.
That was the ultimate Liberal question right there, Madam Speaker. Why not raise taxes and lower them, he said. Well, frankly, Madam Speaker, we're not for raising them on this side of the House. We're for lowering taxes.
The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a final supplementary. Order.
Madam Speaker, in July, Premier Doug Ford of Ontario tweeted that the Premier would be abandoning the carbon tax, that tweet that was later deleted. Yesterday, minutes after the government issued a press release about the carbon tax, a Conservative MP asked a question of the House of Commons about it. It seems that the House of Commons in Ottawa, and indeed the Premier of Ontario, knew about this plan before Manitobans did. It seems that far from standing alone on principle and defending his plan for Manitoba, the Premier has caved in to peer pressure from Conservatives in Ontario and Saskatchewan. Perhaps the reason this government faces such challenges getting anything done is because the First Minister has to ask permission from Conservative leader Andrew Scheer first. Did the Premier of Ontario and the Federal Conservative Party know about this plan before Manitobans did, Madam Speaker?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, Madam Speaker, actually, the Prime Minister and I have had several good discussions about this issue, including but not limited to just 2 weeks ago. And it was very, very clear as a result of that series of discussions that he was steadfast in wanting to have a higher carbon tax for Manitobans. He wanted it double, and frankly, he wanted it for nothing. So what that means, Madam Speaker, is that the member has a choice to make next Thursday as well. He has to decide if he wants to back the Prime Minister and get into the pockets of Manitobans for no good reason, or whether he wants to back us and have lower taxes for Manitobans, and that's going to be his choice next Thursday.